So today we have a special guest. Speech. She's already too excited. Speech from Arrested Development.
Don't tell me you're not excited. You gotta be excited.
I am already like excited. We have our little 90s theme going on here. Speech from Arrested Development, the iconic music hip hop group.
Mhm.
They are what's missing right now that we don't get to enjoy, but we get to enjoy him for a few minutes telling us about himself, the group, questions about that we've been itching to hear. So you guys, I can't tell you how excited I am. He follows the magazine as well. So of course, that's even another, thing to like brag about. What do you think? How do you feel?
I cannot wait to pick his brain.
Mhm.
I want to know what's the inner workings of a band that created something so amazing that you play it today and it sounds fresh and you still want to dance.
Dance to it.
Still wanna
Exactly.
dance.
Exactly. So you guys, you don't want to miss this
Mm-mm.
because we're about to go party with Speech, and we'll see you when we get back.
On today's episode of Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast, we're joined by Speech, frontman of the legendary Grammy award-winning group, Arrested Development, from pioneering a sound that uplifted in the 90s to continuing a legacy of conscious artistry in today's complex musical landscape. Speech brings insight, truth, and reflection. We're talking about elevation through music, the difference between substance and trends, and how staying grounded in purpose can still shake the world. This isn't just about music, it's about culture, legacy, and leading with intention. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Speech, how are you?
Oh, what's up? What's up? How y'all doing?
I'm good.
So
You?
excited.
Yes. You're on here.
It's great to talk to y'all. Y'all got a great energy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Speech. It's such an honor to have you on here. Before we get started, I have our guest host with us, Ijlal.
Ijlal.
And then we have Camellia, my partner in crime as well for this podcast.
Word up.
Like the
It's
backup
good to meet you
dancer.
guys. It's good to meet you guys.
She's
Definitely.
like, she's the backup dancer. So
Love
she
it.
actually
Love
got
it.
dressed like this and she was like, I'm like, what do you think? I was like, oh, it's kind of 90s. She was like, yes. I was like, okay, all right, let's go. So,
That's dope. That's real
thank
dope.
you so much for joining. First of all, I understand you follow the magazine, so thank you so much for that. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Yep.
And of course, we've been following your career for a decade. We don't want to like give the age away, but you're such
Facts.
a
Yeah.
legend. You're such a legend in the game and also outside of the
Thank you.
game. Your face is, of course, memorable. The moment we see you, we know who you are. So,
Wow.
but I mean, let's just get started. Let's get it rock and rolling on this.
Cool.
Your earliest memories when you first before you got into the industry, was this something that you always music? Was this where you saw yourself, or was this something that just happened to land in front of you?
No, I definitely saw myself there. When I was really young, I used to love the Jackson 5 TV show. They had a variety show.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I used to watch it when I was a kid, and I was enamored with Michael Jackson and the rest of the brothers. And I always wanted to be an entertainer from that point. And I even used to do like backyard concerts for the neighbors in my neighborhood when I was about 5 or 6.
Oh my
And
god.
we charged them like 5 cents or something, and they come see my show. And my mom used to have Afro wigs, and I would put on an Afro wig
No, you
and
did
act
not.
like I did, and I would act
I would
like I
pay
was
to
Michael
see that.
Jackson. Yeah, so like that
More
was
than
my
that.
that was my childhood. Like, and then my father owned like a little later when I was about 13. My father owned a nightclub called the Foxtrot, where I'm from, which is Milwaukee, and there's a popular nightclub, and so I used to be there all the time, just as his son. And both of my parents worked full time, so um, I often would just spend time at this nightclub and wait for him to go home, which would sometimes be 1 or 2 in the morning. But of course, I'd be asleep. But like at the nightclub, I'd be asleep, and so in between that time, though, I would watch the DJs, and they were spinning, and I would see the effect it had on the crowd, and I loved it. Like I was like, "Wow, this DJ is literally like magical because he's creating an atmosphere where people are losing their worries and their cares, and it's totally changing their moods, and he's the one behind the tables doing that, and I wanted to learn how to do that. So at age 13, I learned how to DJ at the nightclub.
Wow.
DJ named Kenny B taught me, and then That was sort of the beginnings of my like learning how to produce and stuff like that. So yeah, those were the two biggest things that impacted my love for music.
Hmm. And when you got into it, was it when you now got into the swing of things in terms of when you got into the industry, was it what you expected?
Well, that's a good question because there was a lot of phases, you know.
Mhm.
In the beginning phases, it's great because it's just creativity. You're just trying to create great music and you're trying to make something that's prolific and dope. So at that stage, it's pure and it's amazing. But once you get into the full swing of like major labels, contracts, the business aspect of music, it gets to be a lot more convoluted. And it is, to be honest, sometimes tough. And it definitely was for us as a group and for me to navigate this creative space where it's this pure love for the music. You're doing this creativity to try to inspire and impact people and moving, like marrying that with this business aspect that's very much created before my time, you know, before I was ever in industry. These rules were created and you're trying to abide by them and figure out what, you know, how to navigate this world. So it's definitely it's a challenging thing to do as a creative.
Is it challenging now in comparison to then?
It is for totally different reasons. I mean,
Oh, wow.
I've been in the industry for over 37 years. So, like, being in it for this long, you've seen a lot of different versions of the music industry evolve, you know, or devolve, you know, both. So, you see, so you're constantly learning, you're constantly a student, even though you're a veteran. So, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, I've got a question. So you love the way that
Well,
music picks people up, right? What's your go-to pick-me-up song if you're feeling low? Do you have like a go-to?
That's a great question. No, I don't have a go-to. I love listening to Drake. I love listening to Marley. I love listening to like Isley Brothers. Um, you know, but then to be and in Brazil, like 70s Brazilian music is
Again.
possibly my favorite music to go to. And that just I love it. So there's not one particular thing that I go to, but yeah, you know, it's a lot of stuff. Jazz, I love jazz. Like
Mhm.
I was gonna say, like,
like
your song is a little bit of that jazz too, a little funk, a little
yeah.
jazz, so
Yeah, definitely. I love jazz music. And my favorite artist ever is Prince. So I mean, I go to him too as far as like just inspiration throughout the years. Yeah.
mhm. Hey, Joel, you had a question?
yes. I just, I think y'all formed in like '88, right? And then you kind of hit the ground running pretty much in '92 with the first album, right? Now that was that those 4 years, '88 to '92, right? That was an era where you had Public Enemy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What they were pushing.
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah.
also had NWA. And
Yeah.
based on, what's being said out there and things that were done in the industry, so on and so forth, to move things in a different direction, not necessarily getting into all of that, but what I wanted to know is what did you already have in mind that you were going to be the group that does Mr. Window. You were going to be the group that was Tennessee, or was there any point in time where it was you were trying to figure out when you had those two different types of genres happening in hip hop? At that time, granted, hip hop had been out for already 15 years, but arguably, I would say around that time when y'all hit the scene, that's really when it was picking up a lot of steam. So, did you know that's what you wanted to do, or how did that fare for y'all?
No, it's definitely an evolution. So,
Mhm.
you know, I had a hip hop group in Milwaukee called Attack, and we were very successful in Milwaukee, local group. This is prior to Kanye West, so nothing from the Midwest was popping. This is prior to Common. So we had a thing going on, and at that time, it was very much like Run DMC. It was probably a mixture of Run DMC, UTFO, and yeah, probably between and maybe Houdini. So it's probably a mixture of those three groups. My point is, at that time, that's what I felt was, sort of who I was, and to some extent, that was who I was. I was a high schooler. It was all about girls, drinking, um, just having a good time in that sense. Then as I got older and I moved to Atlanta, which is very much a black mecca. It still is, but it was
Yeah.
even
Mhm.
it was even in '87 when I came here. And that's when I started Arrested Development. I say it in quotes because we didn't call the group Arrested Development. When I first started the group, I ended up calling it Secret Society, and then it developed to a group called Disciples of a Lyrical Rebellion, then
Mm.
finally Arrested Development. So during that time period, um, it was definitely an evolution trying to figure out who I was as a human being. And I tried gangster hip hop at one point, as a rhymer, just like spitting gangster lyrics and stuff like
You
that.
did? I would not have. I
I
would not have.
did.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
did. And it was because it was hot, but it wasn't
Mhm. Yeah.
because I was truly a gangster. Although, don't get me wrong, Milwaukee is statistically known as the worst place for Black people to grow up in.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Racism is heavy there. The
Oh wow.
disparities between Black and white are extremely like in your face.
Hmm.
So I had seen a
So
lot of,
you could have went the gangster route, and it would have been very,
oh,
very
definitely.
natural for you.
Ah.
Definitely.
Okay.
I
Wow.
myself wasn't a gangster, but like most gangster rappers, a lot of what they rhyme about is what they see
Their
more so than what
environment,
they've done.
right?
And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I saw the environment. I definitely did.
Wow.
But, um, but me, I wanted to go a different route. Finally, found myself, and Arrested Development was where it sort of the evolution as far as finding out who I am. It stopped, and it just we started growing from there as Arrested Development, and it was just a thing. And that was probably like in '89 when it
Mm.
finally was like solidified as to what we were doing. And I know you had mentioned a lot of artists like Public Enemy. Their first album, Yo Bum Rush the Show, definitely inspired my awakening to consciousness.
Mm.
It inspired it. And I'll say that um, it was ironic because my mother and father were both activists. My uncle was in the Black Panthers. My mother and father were
Oh
deeply in
wow.
the civil rights movement. My father was a serial entrepreneur for black-owned companies and hiring black people. My mother owned and still owns the largest black newspaper in Wisconsin called the Milwaukee Community Journal. It's been going for
Nice.
49 years.
Wow.
So I had that consciousness in my family atmosphere from since I was a child. But like most children, they sort of rebel from what their parents are doing and they're trying to find their own way when they're in those teen years. And then when I got to be about 18 and 19, I said, I think there's something deeper for me. And Public Enemy helped me realize what my parents had already been doing. It helped me sort of embrace, Black consciousness and understanding about our true history and where we where our mindsets need to be in order for us to advance and do our ancestors proud.
Do you think now that you pretty much realized that you wanted to bring out conscious music, um, how was what was the reaction then in comparison to now? Because those are that's over how many years ago. What was the reaction then when you started really bringing out that conscious music for people to receive, and how do you feel is being received now?
Yeah, back then it was an evolution as well because I came to Atlanta. Atlanta has a very strong black conscious culture within it, but it had nothing to do with hip hop at that time. So this is in the late '80s.
Mhm.
In the late '80s, the hip hop down here was very much like Luke Skywalker and Two Live Crew in the Miami area is very much, you know, strip club type culture and that kind of thing. And so um us being a conscious group was very it was jarring to even the black community in Atlanta. It was very unique. So we had to sort of prove ourselves to the black community here. And then as we came out on record back in the '90s, it was it was a challenge because being conscious because we were from the South. And unlike a Public Enemy who had more of a militant style of Black consciousness or it came from that militant angle, ours was just as radical and just as passionate, but came from more of a spiritual Southern, um, even agricultural, own your own land, self-determination, sort of. It was just a different angle on Black consciousness. So it wasn't exactly like Public Enemy. So that was a challenge as well. Getting radio stations to support it, getting Black people to understand the relevance of it, especially in America. Yeah, so it was interesting. And then to speak on now, you know, it's a much huger challenge now because the landscape for Black music has pretty much been decimated. There's really not even a Black music per se. There's called urban charts. They've sort of
Mhm.
diluted the idea of Black music. There's no, to my knowledge, there's no soul music charts. There's R&B charts. Well, R&B can accompany all types of things today. Um,
Mhm.
there's no soul music festivals, to my knowledge, or very little. Um, so it's just a very different landscape. Nowadays, um, even hip hop has become primarily uh, talking about, strip clubs, partying,
Mhm.
uh, some violence type stuff still is going on, not as much as it once was, maybe 10 years ago. But the conscious sort of thing has by and large faded out. I mean, there's a few artists that are speaking some things. Um, but in my opinion, it's definitely not a genre right now,
Mhm.
like a viable and a live genre, if you will. So it's tougher to get that music out there, but we do it. And there's obviously pockets of people, especially in our age group, that love it and want it. And so we still have an audience. We tour around the world. We hit Africa, Europe, Caribbean, Australia, New Zealand, Central America, certain places we hit it hard and we tour quite a lot.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast with Amaka and Camellia. If you're enjoying the conversation, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and YouTube for new episodes and exclusive content. Stay updated on the latest news, insights, and behind the scenes peeks by following us on social media or emailing us at info@afrostylemag.com. We're always on the lookout for inspiring guests, fresh perspectives, and exciting collaborations. Reach out and let's connect. We'd love to hear from you. Now back to the show.
I mean, what would it take though? Because honestly, you're right. Like the music now that is going on, I really don't pay attention. I tend to like go listen to the 90s and
Sure.
I'm like, gosh, you're speaking my age. But when I would see some of the, even some of the raunchy music or whatever, at least the beat was good, and I'm like dancing
Right.
to the
Yeah.
beat, and
Yeah.
everything. And I'll listen to maybe the the simplified versions of the song.
Sure.
What would it take though? Do you think we would ever get back to that time, or somewhat bring back a little bit of that? Because right now there's really nothing out there, and the idea that we have to dig through to
Yeah.
try and get one good music is is devastating.
Yeah, it is very tough. And I'll tell you, this happened over time, but more and more of our levers that we would activate in order to get conscious music and music that we even love, just music that we feel truly reflects us as a people. Forget just conscious music. Those things have been taken away strategically over the years, where there is less independent um, radio stations. Right now, 80% of the radio stations that exist throughout the United States and pretty much influence much of the world are corporate owned, which means they're making playlists in some centralized location that is going to be just spit out to all of these radio stations. So 80%, that means 10% are independently owned. That's happened over time. And then even the device that we're using right now, you know, these things are very much the algorithms that determine how many views this is going to get, or how many views my video is going to get, or my content is going to get, is very much regulated and determined by people way outside of our community. They have nothing to do with what we're striving to do. So that was the beauty of the 90s, the late 80s, and even prior to that, where you had independent radio stations, disc jockeys, music activists that were in charge, or they felt self-empowered to make sure that you got the dope stuff coming from our community, that
Mm,
you were going to hear the new Tribe Called Quest, or you're going to hear the new Arrested Development. So you had those kind of people. Those levers have been taken, and it is tough. And with the wealth gap and the disparities between those that have and those that have not, that's growing. So us being able to have any outlets to create our own stations is lessening. I'm not trying to be grim. I'm just trying to be real as to what the obstacles are that we
yeah.
face today. Um, so as far as how to get that back, if it was up to me, I would change the distribution of wealth. I would change this administration that exists in the office right now,
Yes,
and
please.
I would and I would try to get money in the hands of everyday people,
Mm.
because once you do
I
that,
see
I
what
think
you did
people's
there. I see
yeah.
what you did there.
Yeah, I think once people have the opportunity, we do have it in our hearts to control things differently and to do things differently. But it's right now, it's not in our hands.
That's the thing about music,
Do-
though. It can really inspire people in so many magical ways. And one of the things that I love that's so timeless about your music is just this uplifting, like it's just very uplifting, and that
Mhm.
hasn't lost
Word up.
any, anything in all these decades. What is it like to create uplifting music in dark times? Like, how do you
Ooh.
not get got by the bear?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good
Well,
one.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like for me personally, I'm a um I'm a pessimistic optimist. So
What?
there's a lot of things I know, right? So there's a lot of things that have happened in my own life that are tough, they're traumatic. And what I tend to do with those things is strive to find the optimism within it. And
See,
so even
that's what I tell her, and she's like, "Shut up, Amaka. Go ahead."
yeah, like you know, so like even a lot of our hits, like Tennessee is the reason I wrote Tennessee was my grandmother passed,
Yeah, yeah.
and the same week my brother passed. And the last place I saw both of them was Tennessee, right? So
Oh,
the
wow.
way that I the way that I expressed that pain was in a song like Tennessee, which is uplifting.
Mhm.
Same with people every day. The reason the song was created was I'm chilling at the park with my girl, and some dudes who had they were at a different point in their journey than I was. So I'm wearing a dashiki, and these brothers are coming and messing with me because I'm wearing a dashiki.
Can you imagine? Mm.
So it's like that song was based on a conflict, but still at the end of the day, it has this uplifting sort of celebratory feel to it. So I think that's sort of the key for what Arrested Development does by nature. And yes, I mean that's how I've sort of used music as an uplifting tool without, in my opinion, being corny or just cheesy.
No, it just sounds like it has a bigger perspective of, there's things that are painful, but being able to take a step back and kind of
Yep,
like
exactly. I think
instead of
you hit it
like,
on the nail.
yeah,
Yeah.
these guys are attacking me. It's like, oh no, they're at a different part of their journey. That, I mean,
Right.
you called it coming into consciousness, which I thought was a very interesting
It's a beautiful
way
way to
to explain it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I was in college, I was definitely not doing that. So what
Right.
do
Right.
you
Yeah.
think? What do
I
you
was
think?
partying,
Was
going
there
to the
catalyst that kind of made the light
Facts.
bulb turn on for you there? Or
What did you say? What did you say last? What was your
was there
question?
like some catalyst that made the light bulb turn on for you that made you find this consciousness of being able to not come from a place that's just so like trapped in anger and hate, but more
Sure.
looking at the bigger picture?
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was acts like Public Enemy that really helped me.
Mm.
Um, because when on Public Enemy's first album, Yo Bum Rush the Show, he says he talks about Chesimard, right? And this political prisoner. And he talks about Farrakhan and he talks about Panther power. And I'm like, who's the Panthers and what power? What are we talking about here? And I just didn't understand a lot of it. And when I started digging a little bit or scratching underneath the surface, it became aware to me that there had been a orchestrated attempt to keep this information from me. And then
Mm.
that in and of itself made me more excited to understand what are they trying to keep from me and why. And then once I started understanding why, I was like, oh, okay, this is a journey I need to be on because this is the journey that gets us to liberation. This is the journey that gets us to the freedom and the ability to be fully human that we've always, for quite a while now, for centuries now, have wanted. And yeah, so yeah, it just was a evolution.
Angel, I thought I heard your
What
voice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. What you said something a little earlier, and it just made me think. As far as your music being spiritual and uplifting, I guess I'm interested like in the signature. What I mean by that is okay. For example, Public Enemy, right? You mentioned them a few
Yeah,
times. Great, one of my favorite hip hop groups of all time, for a number of reasons. Um, but it's very direct. You know, it's very it not to I hope I'm not taking anything away from them. I hope I'm saying this correctly. Their message is in my opinion was is very linear. You know, it's just this is what we're talking about. This is what the
It's in your
song's
face
about.
kind of thing.
It's just
Mm.
yeah.
yeah,
There's
Mm.
it's that way from beginning to the end.
hmm
You, however, you were able to take a pretty almost dangerous situation, like you mentioned when you were when you were talking I just drew a blank when you were wearing
the
you
People
got
Every
shaky
Day
in the
song.
brother
Yeah,
people every day song,
yeah,
yes, you know, and like even the lyrics, it was a very serious song, you know, what
yeah, yeah,
why God, what do brothers have to drill me because if I start to put my
yeah,
hands on his brother they'll have to kill me, you know, it
Kill
was
me.
very
yeah,
it was a
Ooh.
very
yeah,
serious song. And then
yeah,
and if you understood that, especially if you could relate to that, it's like, wow, I've been there and I know what that's like. However, unlike Public Enemy, where it was just a direct message all the way through, you took a
yeah,
very
Personal.
dangerous
Mhm. Mhm.
situation, and then you
yeah,
made it into an uplifting song, and it seems like
yeah,
that's kind of what you do. So
yeah.
I'm labeling it as your signature. I don't know if that's how I'm labeling it.
Yeah.
Where was that was that the artist in you? Was that your style? Is that how you wanted to come through? You didn't want to just have a linear message that is conscious. You wanted to be able to, okay, here's a very serious thing, dangerous, but we're going to make it a spiritual thing. We're going to make it where things that people just sing about every day. And you know, was
Yeah.
that your main focus?
It was, man. That's a great question, bro. And let me say that, you know, yes, the answer is that was the focus. That is the signature. And I'm blessed to be able to be a young dude at the time when
You're
hip
still a
hop
young
had,
dude now.
well,
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
yeah, not, yeah.
Like, come
I'm
on
not
now.
a young dude now, but
You're still
back,
a young dude now. Don't say that. Like,
no, but I am blessed that back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was at a time when all kinds of subject matter was partied to. So, in other words, you had Luke Skywalker, and hey, we want some, and then you had, um, even Melly Mel, which was a little earlier, but like, don't push me, I'm close to the edge. But that was a party song, right?
mhm.
At the
Hmm.
end of the day, people dance to that. That's what I played as a DJ when I was talking to you when I
Hmm.
was younger. You know, even what's going on was played at my father's nightclub, and that was even earlier. So I say all of that to say, and I talk about this in a mini documentary I created called The Nigga Factory. But in the 80s with hip hop, in 88, I'll just choose that year. The same year, Public Enemy created a song called Night of the Living Bassheads, and it's talking about the drug, the crack epidemic, and how it was
Hmm.
destroying the black community. And if you're black, you should never sell drugs to your own community, right? That was their message. Same year, KRS One had a record called "Cocaine Business Controls America,"
Mhm.
and his message was about the same exact epidemic, but he was coming from it from a governmental standpoint, and he was saying basically the government's looped into this whole thing, and he was talking about the Reagan era and Nicaragua and how the drugs were piped into the community, and it was making big money for the government.
Mhm.
My point is that, and then NWA had a song called "Dope Man," and they were talking about from the perspective of the dope man's the king of the hood, and women get down on their knees and do all types of stuff in order to get that dope, right? And that he's based. So there's three different perspectives, all from black artists, all from hip hop, talking about the exact same pandemic or epidemic, and people were dancing to all of it. You know what I'm saying? Like KRS One was a very big artist at this time. Public Enemy was a big
Yeah.
artist at this time, and so was NWA. My point is that I came up in an era that we were we were allowed to have fun with all of these different subject matters, and to take it a bit further, a lot of the tours were mixed with NWA, who might in one breath call you a bitch and a hoe, and then Public Enemy on that exact same tour, who's talking about fight the power, and any number of groups like a Hammer or whoever, or
Mhm.
357, who's, you know, dancing and just having a good time and partying.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff was able to coexist, and it wasn't sort of relegated to the sidelines. If you were speaking about something, you could speak about
Mhm.
things and people still could dance to it. I'll never forget, like, watching, because when Public Enemy came out with the "It Takes a Nation of Millions" album, "To Hold Us Back" album, I'll never forget how hard that went in the nightclubs, how hard that went in the college dorm rooms, and how much people were banging that for fun. Like, they were
Mhm.
banging that for fun, not just like to be educated and like sitting in a classroom. This was music to have fun to. So I was raised in that era where messages didn't have to necessarily be separated from having a good time.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast with Amaka and Camellia. If you're enjoying the conversation, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and YouTube for new episodes and exclusive content. Stay updated on the latest news, insights, and behind-the-scenes peeks by following us on social media or emailing us at info@afrostylemag.com. We're always on the lookout for inspiring guests, fresh perspectives, and exciting collaborations. Reach out and let's connect. We'd love to hear from you. Now back to the show.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that looks like you guys had a whole lot of fun back then compared to what we're having to
Yeah,
contend with now. It's like I'm
yeah,
constantly like switching.
We need
right
that music though. It's like refreshing to be seen in all the
yep.
contradiction, and yet please make it fun because I'm tired of crying, kind of
Yeah.
thing. You know?
Facts. No, I
Yeah,
agree with that.
Right?
Totally.
exactly. And
Totally agree with that.
it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that we're having to have this kind of conversation now when we needed these kind of songs now more than ever.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
But hopefully we'll get back to that. You're leading the way, man. You got to get something
And
going.
definitely, and let me say
That's why
too,
you're on
like,
the podcast. That's why
yeah,
you're in the
and it is
magazine. It like
doable.
takes people like you and like all of us here saying, can we please bring back quote unquote DEI in terms of diversity when it comes to
Facts.
music?
Mhm.
Because
Facts.
it really makes a difference. I cannot tell you how many times I would hear a song, and not only do I get pissed off, I get pissed off because the lyrics are stupid, and then
Yeah,
people are not rapping. So I'm
yeah.
just like, what the hell are they talking about? And then
Right.
the third thing that at least will make me pay
Yeah.
attention to a song is at least the beat needs to be good. When you don't
Right.
even
Yeah.
have the beat, the bass line
Yeah.
right
Exactly.
there,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. So not to have it now and I have to, which I love anyway, to go back to the time of Arrested Development in the 90s
Yeah.
going into the early 2000s is sad. So
I agree with you.
yeah, I mean,
I wanted to say something right quick. Like,
yes, sir.
when we tour, and I don't, where y'all based out of?
Well, we here are in California.
LA.
Okay, you're in California.
And
And
Um,
very
I'm in New York.
you're in New York. Okay.
New York.
So we just went to California. We did Los
what?
Angeles,
And you didn't
and
call us?
I know exactly. Yeah, we did San Francisco and Los
Mm.
Angeles. It was us, the Far Side, and Digable
Oh,
Planets, right? And sold out.
Nice.
Both shows sold out. Nice big venues. We did the
Nice show.
Warfield, and we did, I forget the exact venues, but anyway, long story
dope.
short, great show. And what I was gonna say is that our show, people were dancing the entire show, and yet all of these various messages that I'm talking about now and many others were being said on the mic, but it was a party the entire time, and it wasn't like a cry fest. You know what I'm saying? Like you were just saying, like, look, I can't cry anymore, and I'm with you on that. Like we got to be able to have fun and um like levitate,
Mm.
past some of this gravity that's pushing us down in this world that we live in. So, um, yeah, so it was incredible, and that's what our tours tend to be. So next time we come, I really hope y'all come to the show and peep us
I
out.
know,
Sounds
right?
like
Now
a
that you say
blast.
that, I'm gonna be
I
bothering
just
you
want
guys.
rewind time
Yeah,
and be at that.
I'm gonna be bothering.
yeah,
Well, the thing is that you just said something in mind. I'm like, actually, that's not for me. There are times that I listen to some of the songs from the past, and there are times I get a little emotional just because, man, I
sure,
remember when I used to just enjoy, even if it's a song that is not necessarily a happy song,
sure,
but
yeah,
just that nostalgia, and I'm just like,
yeah,
and I miss this.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
hopefully, we continue to push that to the forefront again, that people really pay attention.
Word up. I
So,
agree. I
yeah,
agree. And by the way, we have a new record called
yeah,
Adult Contemporary Hip Hop coming
okay,
out July 4th
Yes.
this
yeah,
year.
hmm
And I'm really excited about it. I think it's a beautiful piece of work. It's 20
hmm
songs. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it is the things that we've been talking about today, like uplifting. It makes you feel good. And at the same time, it's giving you a lot of things to think about, but also, you know, it just helps you to rise above, you know, the depression and just whatever.
hmm
So yeah, it's really exciting for us. July 4th, adult contemporary hip hop.
Adult
Yeah.
content.
Yay! I'm
That's
so
what's up. I was
excited.
actually about to say what is next for your team, for you and your team. So you
Yeah.
pretty much beat us to it. But thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
for jumping in. And I know, excuse the excitement, but I'm excited.
Please. No,
Like so
that's like
excited to
that
talk to
makes everything
you.
better. Yeah.
And like to talk to, and the fact that you support the magazine by
Yeah.
I think a few times you've shown love by
No
reposting
doubt
stuff that
about
we
it.
do.
Yep.
Thank
Yep.
you so much. It really means a lot, especially when we have such platforms such as ours, and it's really hard to get people such as yourselves and others
Facts.
to notice us and say, hey, we're trying to celebrate a community.
That's
And to
right.
have people like you say, hey, check out this magazine or check out this platform or reposting stuff, it really does mean a lot. So please be aware of that.
I appreciate that. And like what we got to do next is we got to create a cruise like Afro Style, Arrested Development. I got another brand called Black Existence. Like we got to create a
Love that.
cruise to where people that's wanting this type of vibe, we go out somewhere on the open waters and just like, what I'm
Oh,
saying, have a lot of great things to expose people to, but also have a great time with each other. So we got to
I
do
love
something.
all of this. Like,
That
say
Yeah.
is
less.
really, that is definitely
Sounds
gonna
dope.
don't you don't get it started now. Maybe start hollering and be like, what did you say now?
No, let's start it up. Let's go. Let's go.
Yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's do something.
Yeah.
Even if we start small and it picks
Yeah.
up, then we go from there. Because there are
Mm,
people I know that
Facts.
are anchoring for that, and
I agree.
I
Maybe it's
love
a
this
festival.
cruise.
Maybe it's a festival at first
That's
and then a
cute.
cruise later. You
Oh
know what I'm
my
saying?
goodness.
That'd be dope. Yeah.
okay, all right. I'm excited
Yeah.
here. Don't get. Thank you
No, we're for
so
real. I'm
much.
for real.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sweet, so much for joining us.
You're welcome, you
I,
guys.
I will definitely be looking out for anything that you put out there and see how we can collaborate where necessary.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
Love to the
Thank you.
family.
Thank you.
Do you have
Yeah.
anything to add to that?
No, just
Um,
peace of love to you guys.
Thank you. Ijal, what'd you say?
in closing, or one more question for the good brother.
Hey, what do you think? Sweet speech. What do you want?
No, it's on you guys. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
on
go
you.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. You have. Yeah, I guess you started out at least mainstream group. You've also experienced the solo artist
Yeah.
life,
Mhm.
and then you went back to group.
Yeah.
Um, what? How is how does that world work, and what was necessarily the motivation if you remember Brand Nubians, they did the same thing, and then they came out with another song when they got back together called "Don't Let It Go to Your Head."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did it go to your head, or what was that for you?
Damn.
No, I mean it's a great question. So,
Yeah.
you know, we came out in 92. We broke up in 95. Um, we stopped doing music in 95 as a group. And then I immediately in 96 released a solo album called Speech, just self-entitled. And it didn't do anything in the States. It did incredibly well overseas and in Asia in particular. And so I started touring Asia a lot, started licensing my music instead of basically being a more independent artist. So instead of a major label, I was my own label. My label's called Vagabond. And we would license the music to major labels. And so it changed my whole business model, which I'm very grateful for. And then when Arrested Development members were calling me saying, "Hey, why don't we get back together?" I was like, you know what? Not only should we, but we now have a pathway that we can go. And I started doing the licensing with Arrested Development albums and starting overseas and then working our way back to the States. So, yeah, both experiences were amazing for me. As far as things getting to my head, I mean, from my perspective, I don't feel it got to my head too much. I feel like I was always striving to stay grounded throughout this experience. But I say my perspective because some of my group members would say the opposite. They'd say, "No, this nigga he went straight to his head." Like he's so, you know, I think there's different perspectives on that I can't speak on what they feel. But from my perspective, yeah, it definitely was striving to stay grounded, striving to stay creative and like keep it pure as possible because that's to me the thing that ultimately gets destroyed with entities out here in the entertainment world is that money, power, respect, these things all often deteriorate the pure creativity and the reason that you had the fame in the first place. It starts to deteriorate those things. So
Thank you for the answer, good brother Speech, and thank you
yeah,
for all that you do, all that you've done. I'm a huge fan. I grew
thank
up
you.
with fans of Arrested Development, and your music is truly inspirational. I'm very much interested in this new album, and seeing where y'all go. Don't stop, groups like you. Please don't stop because we need it. Lord knows we need it.
Yes, we
Thank
do.
you, man. I appreciate y'all's love, man. It was a pleasure to do this interview.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure
you.
having you.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
rest of your day. Love to the family.
Okay, peace.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. What did you think?
Um, you know what? I'm like, as much as I very much like the show, I'm just more so interested in like, how did she get speech? That's what I keep. I'm like, how did she do
You
this?
know, I have maybe. You know, the thing is that when I found out that Arrested Development was following the magazine, I was like,
Mhm.
I wonder what if he would respond and indicate an interest in an interview. So we have a few number of celebrities that do follow the magazine, but
Oh, okay, I
with
got you.
this, yeah. So it's a matter of who will respond. So when he responded, I was like, so it's just kind of like, it's like a touch and go. It's either they respond or they don't respond. But he was,
Listen, Amaga she makes it look so like maybe, maybe not, but she's just like she's a workhorse. She finds a way to bring on, and she told me, she's like, hey, we're going to interview Speech from Recital. I was like, no, Amaga, that's hip hop royalty. I'm not cool enough for this interview. What are we going to do? Thank you, Charles, for coming on and bringing your expertise on hip hop and your thoughtful questions into the conversation
Yep.
because like, Maka brings them. I'm the backup dancer. You brought the great questions. Like, let's go.
yeah, it really did make sense. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I well, Amaka. I mean, you know how I get down from how we met. I'm
Mhm.
very much into promoting, Black creativity, and then
Mhm.
doing the whole, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So when you asked, I was just like, all right, I don't know what's on my schedule, but I'm making it. If I
And
can,
I
if I can,
appreciate.
if I can help. Yeah, I mean, you were there for me in the Lost Creators podcast, so it's like, all right, I got you. And I very much enjoyed it. I enjoy doing this, So anytime, good sister Cam and good sister Amaka, anytime that you want to, holler at me again and want me to be on the show, I'll, as long as I got the notice like you gave me this time, I'll definitely do it. And I always try to do. I want to be in a. I want to help. I don't want to just sit here and be like, oh, okay, that's fine. I want to make sure I'm doing or I'm playing my part in the show rather than just a person sitting here. So I do as much research as I can, and to try to make sure I don't sound like a fool when I'm speaking, and just kind of ask the questions that I don't know. Really, I think that I would want to know,
Yeah, yeah.
and
The
then that
questions you
time that
asked,
come.
no. The question you asked were good because those are questions that I didn't think about, and you didn't think about. So
yeah, placing it in context
in context, it
with
does.
all the other like main inspirational bands at the time, like that really kind of set the scene for when they came out of the woodwork.
Yeah, you really
So that was-
did. It really did help
I couldn't have done
because
that. Yeah.
even her
Not close.
question about no, it's not. Be quiet.
No.
It's like she always tries to downplay her role, but no, the question you asked about, how is he able to take something that is so painful and step out of it and bring something joyful to the stage? That was a great question because I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that, and that's
Excellent
the whole point
question.
of music.
Yeah,
Well, no, but then
that
you
was an
brought out the
excellent question,
lyrics.
good sister Cam,
Thank
because
you, thank you.
The,
When
the
you
reason why
isolated,
the reason why I thought that was a great question is because I was actually going to ask him what the effect that his brother passing playing his music. So, and you had already he was already on top of it, and then he mentioned Tennessee. And listening when he said that, I was like, I think the tone of that song I could see, even though he didn't say it. And I wouldn't have known it until he said that. But I can now, I'm like, okay, I could see that. And that's artists are just really good at doing that. So that was a very good question that you asked.
he's obviously masterful at taking, because when you were talking about the lyrics to Everyday People, and I saw how dark the lyrics got. Like, I didn't think about it. I just like when I feel his music, I vibe. But then I was like, damn.
Yeah, it does play.
Damn,
But that's
It's heavy.
that's the beauty of music. Like you dance to it and everything. When you say, okay, let me really sit down and read this, and you're like, whoa, this is deep. Then it now has you thinking in different direction. And that's the beauty of the music that we're needing right now. And to have
We are.
yeah. So
I mean,
go ahead.
I didn't want to interject too much, because this is not the Lost Creators podcast, so I wanted to kind of go with the flow, but I very much wanted to ask and dig a little bit more when it relates to that specific issue, because I think what makes it like he even said the message, Grandmaster Fast and Furious 5. That song, that was another very linear song. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I mean, all the way through it was just explaining. Yeah, but then he said that that's a party song. I think what makes it party is because it's us doing it. We just, we have a way of making things very trendy, very alluring, and this, in spite of the message, I'm not gonna say in spite of the message. That's the wrong wording. That's the design. The design is, I guess, first to really in. Hey, this sounds good, right? And then make you say, but listen to what's being said. And what's so great about that, and that was another thing we could have got into. We could have had like a 10-hour conversation with him. Anyway, that was another thing that we could have got into, but the understanding that even though it's people are dancing to it, you're still absorbing those words. You're still absorbing that message. And like he said, and like what's happening, that's why it had to stop. Because that positive message is definitely making an effect, which is why we don't have it anymore. But yeah, thank you so much. I very much enjoyed this. I really did, and I'm glad that you felt that I guess I achieved what you would hope I would by inviting me. So
Yes, you did.
thank you very
Yes,
much.
So nice
yes,
to
you
have
did.
you.
Thank you for being a part of it and green. Again, what's the name of your podcast so that people are aware?
Lost Creatives Podcast.
Fantastic. Yeah, you guys be
Lost
sure to
Creative
check it.
Podcast.
Lost Creative Podcast. Be sure to check it out. Again, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure, and we'll definitely have
Thank you very much, good sisters. It was my pleasure. It's all mine. I appreciate it. Remember, anytime, just reach out to me.
Bye.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Let's Talk, the Afro Style podcast with Amaka and Camellia. We hope you enjoyed it. If you missed this episode, you can catch up on YouTube and Spotify. And be sure to subscribe, comment, and email us at info@afrostylemag.com. We'd love to hear from you.